When I first pulled up to Madeira, like many of you did, I was greeted with excited girls at the gate, cheering us on and hyping us up. Initially, I felt welcomed, and I thought to myself, wow, these girls are so energetic. Then the whirlwind called orientation happened. It was Kaleva, welcome events, meetings, get to know you one after the other. By the time I dragged my feet out of Black Pond and back into the Oval, I was exhausted and just wanted a shower. But as I looked around and saw other girls chatting, conversing, Sodexo burgers in hand, I thought to myself, wow, these girls are so energetic. It was only later when I got back to my dorm, exhausted once more, got my shower, scrolling my phone on my bed, and ready to take my sleep. I hear two dreaded words. As you can guess, it's dorm meeting. It was bye-bye blanket and hello room of crowded strangers. As I looked around once more, seeing girls conversing, I thought to myself, wow, these girls are so energetic. It was then when I realized, is this the type of energy that people here have all day? I got my answer. Not the whole day, but rather the whole week. In this little snapshot, I may have sounded like a misanthrope, a slacker, or someone that holds deep hate for the DOS department. I am none of those things. What I am, however, is an introvert. Indeed, introverts are often misunderstood, labeled as shy or quiet and boxed into these cookie-cutter stereotypes. In actuality, in accordance to the APA or American Psychological Association, introversion is defined as the center towards one's internal self and thoughts instead of the external world of people and things. Furthermore, personality is, like many things, a spectrum. There are no 100% introverts or extroverts, and we all fall in some degree in between. Then there's always the ambiverts, those who are 50-50 right in between. So a quick show of hands. Who here today thinks that they are an introvert? Oh, okay, I'm seeing a good number of you, more than I expect. So in America, roughly 30 to 50% of us are introverts. Yet in many ways, we are consistently discriminated against. While discrimination based on race, gender, and religion is much more apparent and thus on the forefront of our minds, discrimination based on personality is rarely discussed. Let me emphasize that again. If 50% of our population was discriminated against on something innate, you would have expected there to be protest, action. Yet this discrimination of introversion is still deeply entrenched in our society. If we take a look at our institutions, we can begin to see some clues. Take, for example, early school days, elementary, preschool. Outgoing kids are praised while more shy counterparts are seen as a problem and a case for concern in parent meetings. They're told that introversion is an issue to be fixed. Education is not important just because it's a conveyor of information. Education is important because it's a conveyor of values. And what much of the current American education system is telling us is that kids have to be sociable, loud, outgoing, talkative if they want to be seen, if they want to be heard. They have to be extroverts. Growing up as an introvert is having parents apologize for your shyness, is having people telling you to just come out of your shell or step out of your comfort zone because apparently they think that introversion is an ugly shell to be shed instead of a perfect part of who you are. All these experiences compound to make introverts feel like there's something inherently wrong with us as we grow up, even before we realize that we are introverts. I know from my personal experiences that many of my own insecurities stem from the stigma surrounding introversion. I used to berate myself on why I wasn't a social butterfly, why I couldn't just go up to someone and talk to them like many of my peers could. Then there's high school. High school in general, we have discussion-based classrooms. And in discussion-based classrooms, especially in my early days, I found it difficult to speak up, to get prepared, and to have the courage to even say something in conversation that by the time I was ready, the conversation has long since moved on. Then there's always the constant fear that teachers might not recognize you for your hard work nor your interest in the subject, simply because you don't speak up as much as, say, the girl in the desk next to you. Furthermore, in our futures, when it comes to college applications, interviews are an evaluative part of the process that completely disadvantages introverts. Think about this. Small talk with strangers that may or may not just determine your future. Over around 6 months ago, I read this book called Quiet, The Power of Introverts in a World That Can't Stop Talking by Suzanne King. And I'm not kidding when I say this book revolutionized my thinking, perhaps my life too. It taught me the benefits of introversion and how to best embrace my introvert self to become the best version of who I can be. But before we jump into that, let's discuss a phenomenon that came terms as the culture of personality. The culture of personality is a unique American phenomenon that started around the 20th century. It featured this idea of someone who was sociable, loud, outgoing, life of the party, and alpha. It valued outward personality more than inward character. And it was all over the place with life help books, media, marketing that continued to perpetuate these stereotypes. However, this was a uniquely American phenomenon. If we compare ourselves to East Asian culture, we'll see that in East Asian cultures, being quiet is seen as being contemplative and thoughtful, while being loud is seen as being rowdy and insolent. Take this ancient Chinese proverb into account, for example. Do not speak unless you can improve on the silence. Now, let's compare it to this Western one. The squeaky wheel gets the grease. As you can see from these comparisons, the culture of personality is very different in different countries. And indeed, in my personal experiences growing up in the middle school in China, I felt these effects. There, I wasn't considered quiet at all, maybe even sociable. But here, well, that's a completely different story. Furthermore, there's this constant pressure in American culture that shuns being alone, as if being alone is something that you shouldn't be proud of at all, as if titles of loner and loser are constantly thrown around in American culture. Yet, why do we do this? Why do we not respect the fact that being alone sometimes may be a conscious choice? For instance, when I go to brunch sometimes, I do appreciate the very kind invitations I get to tables, but sometimes I enjoy having brunch alone. And I think that we as a society must embrace that some people prefer being alone, that it's a constant choice instead of a last-ditch effort and whatever comes next after you don't have a choice. Because only in solitude does creativity, ideas, and innovation spring. Especially with COVID, we've had much more of that last year, uncovering many of the benefits of introversion. Let's think about this. Many writers, the reason why so many famous writers are introverts is because they embrace solitude. They embrace that space for creativity, thinking, creation. Einstein wasn't off partying when he created E=mc², nor was Bill Gates clubbing when he founded Microsoft. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If you're such an introvert, what are you doing up here? Very valid question. I will let you know that last night I was practicing on this stage, panicked, collapsed on the ground right here in stress. So that's a story for another time. But the point is, the reason I am doing this speech is because I want to self-improve and embrace that introvert part of myself, all while showing that introversion doesn't have to become a barrier to your success. It can be part of it. Now, if there's one thing I learned from my experiences and Kane's words is that introversion is not an obstacle to success. It's your path to success. There are so many characteristics that Americans portray as negative or depict it in some sort of light that's not favorable, even though if we think about it, they can be greatly beneficial once we take care of it as introverts. For instance, introverts don't spread themselves out as thin as many other personalities do. While this may seem to others as somewhat restraining themselves, that actually means that introverts have great ability to focus, concentrate, and make an impact on a specific subject. For instance, when psychologists gave 50 participants a difficult jigsaw puzzle, they found that extroverts were much more likely than introverts to give up halfway. The quiet persistence of introverts is truly a skill that's unique to introversion and something that will take you far in life. Furthermore, this can pertain to social circles. For instance, making friends, networking. While the circle might not be as great for introverts, each bond is unique and each bond is strengthened. Furthermore, introverts have a unique decision-making skills. We tend to make less risky and bold choices, which isn't always a bad thing. Take for account the 2008 stock market crash. While the personalities on Wall Street and many others lost huge sums of money, Warren Buffett, a tried and true introvert, was actually able to maintain all of his fortune and even expand upon it during the crisis. This is because introverts make less go big or go home decisions. Because many times people will be going home. And lastly, introverts make excellent leaders. For example, Rosa Parks. She was an introvert, but she was kind, honorable, and she spoke up when she had to with that simple, defiant no. And because of that, people were able to see that if she was able to speak up and act in this way, they took on the initiative to do the same. She started a movement. It may feel difficult sometimes to speak up when you feel that voices overpower yours, when you feel like you don't have the strength, and when you feel like you aren't given the space to speak up. But remember this, the loudest in the room aren't always the ones with the best ideas. In my own experiences leading in equity learning, I've seen much of the same thing. Equity Learning was a free tutoring organization I founded in the pandemic. And as I led this organization, I found that when I give people space and room to contribute their ideas, our success is only enhanced. There are many times where I couldn't have thought of the ideas simply by myself. And because of that, when everyone filled in, we were able to compile the genius in the team and advance even forward. Take into account another study by Adam Grant. In the study, he surveyed 130 pizza franchise companies and found that in those with passive employees, extroverts were able to make 16% more profits. However, in those with active employees who constantly gave new ideas and pitched new suggestions on how to improve work procedures, those with introvert leaders achieved 14% higher profit. Why? Because introverts listen. Introverts like to include new opinions. Introverts like to bring in multiple perspectives. And this is why so many ideas that otherwise might have been submerged will come to light under introvert leadership. In all, introverts, when in passion, can overcome so many barriers. Obstacles are no longer obstacles, but only a stepping stone towards success. Whether from speeches and events like this one to leadership, introverts have great power and similar skill to any other personalities do. If there's one thing I want everyone to take from this meeting, it would be that balance is key. We need those who like to take big, bold risks and those who are a little bit more cautious. We need those who like to jump around and explore and those who like to stay focused and drilled on one subject. We need those who talk and those who listen, giving space for each other to do a role reversal when necessary. I want the extroverts to understand what it means to be an introvert, and I hope that the introverts can have a better understanding of themselves. I hope that we as a community can celebrate diversity in personality, just like we do with diversity in many other aspects. And I hope that we can have more of these conversations in the future. But most of all, I want the 30 to 50% of you introverts out there to feel that you don't have to push away that part of you, rather embrace it to reach your full potential. Because you are inspiring, you are powerful, you are a great leader, and you are a deep thinker. You are an introvert, and you are enough. So own it and go out there to change the world like the introvert you are. Thank you.